a little bit about it. So welcome everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Hat Song Podcast. The topic for this evening is unraveling and resolving childhood emotional trauma. So um, today is March 27th, 2025. So explaining the graphics for this. It's so it's kind of like the way I understand how energy works is that um a trauma usually just works out to be starting in the middle. So it's just an event that that's kind of overwhelmed us. So we felt a bit traumatic emotionally at the time. And then, but then there are a lot of things that happens because of this event that we're not always aware of. And and so energy started to run, I was like I the word I'm looking for is skewed. So when we because of that traumatic event, so we respond and then differently from then on, and we it in that event, that traumatic event, kind of um changes how we respond and react to things. So at first it's just a small thing, and then it starts to spiral out, and it starts to get bigger and bigger and morph into something that we may or may not be too conscious of. Um, and so we become who we are, but then underneath it, there actually is a lot of layers and layers of stories that a lot of the times, we've forgotten the stories. So we are only reacting. We are not ourselves, or we are not the original um, self anymore. So that's why I picked this image. It's a spiraling out effect of trauma. Is it starts small, but then as time progresses and we start to not sh- we start to do things slightly differently because we want to tiptoe over the traumatic feelings. So it gets bigger and bigger, and we are more and more off course. So that's why I picked this kind of this spiraling effect as a visual representation of what trauma actually does to us. So we're now going to do the opposite to in order to resolve it, is we just access the our behavior, and then we start to from the behavior we start to go back to the source of it. The source of it is usually because we are resisting something. Something happens and we panic, and so we get overwhelmed. But then the best way to handle something like that, an event that is overwhelming, is simply to allow our emotions to just run its course and not try to resist, not try to be fearful. Now, I'm talking about emotional trauma, of course, not physical ones, because physical ones, our body, let's say physical trauma, maybe we have a car accident. The body is like get injured. So we try to put it back together. And so there is a process for healing the body. Whereas in terms of emotions, not everybody is able to or learned how to regulate themselves emotionally. And so when we don't know or when we haven't been taught how to express our emotions properly, then emotions get distorted. And when it gets distorted, it changes and shifts into many ways that, and a lot of the times it becomes unconscious. And so we don't even know that it's there, but it's still, that event is still um, coloring and it's acting in the background. So that next time something similar happens, we kind of just go crazy. We don't quite know how to handle it. So, um, for childhood emotional trauma, I think for this this third dimension, especially because we've been playing with light and dark and good and evil. So it is something that is inevitable because it's part of what third dimension is about, is we play with the black and white. So in order for us to understand black and what is black and what is white, we hold certain things as being good, which of course just automatically puts something else into being the bad category. So that we resist those. So it's a lot of the times it is resistance. It's our own resistance to look at something as what it is that creates that creates that traumatic response. So pretty sure we all have some. Now, whether we have resolved it or already or not, that like you would know, each of you would know better. So, any questions, comments so far? Not really? Okay. So there is so the source energy that we are using this time is really healing the inner child and core emotional wounds. So it's that specific spectrum of the source energy that we're calling on to start to shift these emotional trauma. And what I want to do is actually have two kind of two healing. The first one is really to let go of fear of not being good enough. So a lot of the times we have because of these emotional trauma. So a lot of the times we have kind of this fear of not being good enough embedded in there. So I just actually just want to do a clearing of this fear of not being good enough first before I go and tackle the actual emotional trauma that is unresolved. So what is so how do you know that you have some unresolved emotional trauma? It will show up as a certain pattern. So, for example, I'm just trying to think of, okay, so for example, for me, whenever I'm in a group setting, I would feel a bit of anxiety. So that is a childhood trauma because it's there are certain things, there are certain events that triggers it. So usually in a group setting, and if it's a group of people that especially if it's a group of people that I'm not very familiar with, then it's kind of get triggered quite automatically. And so I would, so when I feel the anxiety coming up, it's like it's something that I don't have any control over. I'm usually a pretty mellow person, and then I don't usually feel anxious. But when I go and when I have to go and interact with people, a group of people, and a group of people that I don't know very well, then this anxiety starts to come up. And that's how I know that that is from some sort of a childhood emotional trauma. And I actually kind of know where the event around that. The event itself may be something that seems trivial at that time, but over time it has gathered energy. So that now the anxiety is triggered quite, and I can notice it, and I feel emotional in anxiety, and also there are physical symptoms associated with that as well. So that's one of the ways that you would be able to tell that it's a something that is from a childhood emotional trauma. Um, so think of something that, or I would say, think of some patterns, emotional patterns that you have observed in yourself that you would like to let go of, and just hold that when we are doing the final kind of group healing. But for now, the first one, let's go into do the releasing the fear of not being good enough. So any questions, comments before I continue? Okay.